Hello YouTube, my name's Andrew and we're back today with another episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Beginner Series. In today's episode, I get to talk about one of my favorite decks, Dragon Link. Dragon Link is a very powerful combo deck that is good going first or second and has something that many combo decks do not, one-card starters. Whereas most combo decks require you to have a combination of two cards, for instance, Ben 10 plus Drytron name, or, in the Adamantipator deck, you have to have a rock card plus a researcher. In the Bird Up deck, you need to have two cards to do pretty much anything. You can have one dragon, any level 4 or lower dragon, and it can provide you at least some level of play. This makes this deck really good when you use multiple cards from your hand to play through your opponent's board. You can follow up with a very decent board of your own. I'm going to show some of the combos. I'm going to talk about the various deck lists. I'll talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of this deck, and I'll get to show a replay. If you guys like this kind of content, really appreciate a subscription to the channel. I'm going to be doing an advanced series on all the decks featured in the beginner series where I show 5 duels and talk about them so you can see more content. If you want to see some live content, check out my Twitch page. We go live quite a bit. But without further ado, let's jump into this video. Here I have the Dragon Link deck that I've currently been running. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about the ratios. As you see, this is 44 cards. It's not required. Some of these ratios are flexible. This deck in general is very flexible as far as lists are concerned. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where you can cut and where you can add. So a card that I added is DD Crow. DD Crow is a really good hand trap in the current meta because it has good matchups against both Drytron and Eldritch. In this deck in particular, you play a card called Chaos Space. Chaos Space requires you to discard a light or dark monster to start your combos, and also you have the Chaos Ruler, the Chaos Magical Dragon. This card can add light or dark cards from your deck to your hand. Due to this, you're going to want to focus on light and dark hand traps such as DD Crow, Effect Veiler, Nibiru, and cards like this. Cyframe Gamma is another one, so that way you can maximize the potential and consistency of your deck. We play one copy of the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword for a combo that you can use with Union Carrier to lock your opponent out of their extra deck. One copy of Rocket Synchron. You could play 2 of this or 1, totally variable. I chose 3 Max C3 Ash Blossoms like I do in many of my decks. And I have 2 copies of each the Wyver Burster and the Collapse Serpent. These can be cut to 1, or you can play them at 2. It's up to you. I like playing 2 because it turns Starliege Seafort into a very good starter. Playing only 1 of each, you probably wouldn't play the Seafort, and I'll show you what you'd replace it with. I'm using 3 copies of Rocket Tracer and 2 copies of Rocket Recharger. You could play 2 copies of Tracer and 1 copy of Recharger. That's perfectly fine, but I like having the additional Rocket names. I do play 3 copies of Starliege Seafort. Very nice starter. You can normal summon this card and send either it or monsters from your hand or other monsters from your field to search your deck for basically any dragon. You'll typically be searching out either Chaos Dragon Levineer, you can search out your baby dragons, whichever one you need, or you could search out your rockets if you don't already have them. We have 1 copy of Chamber Dragon Maid in this deck. She's really good. You can play 2 of this, but if you do, you'll want to play 3 copies of Tidying. 1 and 2 is a pretty good ratio for me. The 1, Dragon Maid, you usually will summon this off of the effect of the Hieratic Seal and use its effect to search for copies of Dragon Maid Tidying as good follow-up. I'm going to play 2 copies of Absolouter Dragon. If you're playing a smaller rocket engine, you just play 1 of him. This card's really good. Whenever it's sent to the graveyard by any means, such as being discarded for Twin Twister, you search your deck for a rocket. You can also special summon it whenever you have a rocket on the field. It's a very good extender, and if you're playing other cards like Dragon Ravine, which I'll get into in a minute, it gets even better. A card that I like a lot, but is not as consistent, this card can brick a little bit, is Noctovision Dragon. The reason it can brick is because it can't special summon itself. You can only special summon it if you special summon a Dark Dragon. There's definitely no shortage of Dark Dragons in this deck, so it's usually going to prove itself as a good extender. Let's say, for instance, you normal a level 4 or lower dragon and then link it into a Striker Dragon. You then special summon Noctovision, and whenever you use Noctovision as link material, you get to draw a card. So it's a really good additional card advantage resource, and you can also use it to hide your more important effects in the chain. It has another effect too that's worth mentioning. When this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it to protect your set cards from destruction and from anything that targets them. So if your opponent uses their Twin Twister and you have a set tidying plus droplets, you just banish this from graveyard instead and protect your cards. Nobody reads this card, and so it's going to come up at least once if you play this deck. And your boss monster in the main deck is Chaos Dragon Levianeer. With 3 amazing effects, it does whatever you need as long as you have the right lights and darks in graveyards to facilitate it. Managing your graveyard is a crucial part of playing this deck, and you can add this back to your hand from the graveyard using Seifert's graveyard effect to add a level 8 light or dark dragon back. You can use Levianeer's effect on summon, popping opponents' cards, removing cards from their hand, but there is a downside that it can't attack. Then all you do is link it away, add it back to your hand with Seifert, and then summon it again. Once it's summoned again, you can use it to attack. So it's important to understand these little intricacies. It's a very intricate deck in general, and the more you play it, the more you'll start seeing these plays, with your own eyes. 3 Chaos Space is one of the best cards in the game, probably the best spell for chaos-oriented decks. You discard any light or dark, and then you add the other color, a level 4 or between 4 and 8. Your good targets for this, you're going to search a Baby Dragon or Levianeer if you discard a light, but most times off you're going to find yourself searching out the Baby Dragons. You can then use it in graveyard to return a monster that cannot be normaled from your banished pile to the extra deck to draw a card. So you can use this with the Baby Dragons to kind of recycle them and always have additional copies in your deck to search, or you can use it to recycle your extra deck monsters like Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres that you may want to use more than once per game. Doing it this way will give you a lot of hand advantage. You're going to find yourself, if you combo off turn 1, having 6, 7 cards in hand, and your resources go a lot further than other combo decks. Now, you only have to play 1 copy of Boot Sector Launch. Boot Sector Launch, you can search off of the effect of Striker Dragon, so any of your level 4 or lower dragons can simply link into this guy and then search out your field spell, and it has 2 very, very good effects. The first effect allows you to summon rockets from your hand, and the second effect allows you to summon rockets from your grave. So going first, you're likely going to use the first effect, and then going second, you'll find yourself using the second effect. It can be a really good card to hold in your hand if you can combo without using it, because then turn 2, you can play this, or just keep it on the field if your opponent can't remove it, and you'll get all these monsters back that have already used their effects, allowing you to go further into your link climbing plays, and then maybe revive some of your powerful boss monsters. Additionally, we play 2 copies of Twin Twister. This is variable. It's kind of like my tech choice. You could use Harpy's Feather Duster instead and save on deck space, but I like Twin Twister because with a lot of your plays, discarding dragons is not so bad. Discard an Absolouter to get its effect, discard a Seifert to banish it and add back a Levianeer, and you could even just put a light or dark in graveyard so that way your baby dragons are live. And if your baby dragon resolves, it's really good, honestly. One of these guys getting on the field and then going into Striker Dragon is a lot of card advantage, and it can convert into a lot of your different plays. So I like Twin Twister. It has really good matchups against, Eldritch, but it doesn't really do anything against Drytron, so it was going to be your choice if you choose to include this. 3 copies of Quick Launch is pretty non-negotiable, however. Card's amazing. Special any rocket from your deck, not once per turn. It just can't attack. Destroy it during the end phase. So if you're gonna normal summon a Rocket Tracer, your opponent will usually max C. You can go ahead and chain the Quick Launch to the max C, and then even if you want to, chain the Tracer effect, popping the Quick Launch. So that way you special 2 more monsters before your opponent's max C resolves. If you do get max C'd, it's really nice to consolidate into a card like Heretic Seals of the Heavenly Spheres, maybe with a tidying set. You could probably even go into a Boral Savage Dragon. You don't want to give them a lot of cards because you can easily convert your cards into negates or disruptions without special summoning too much. On the line of Max C, we do play 2 Called by the Grave with the 3 Ash Blossom to hedge against Max C. This card is really nice. It's a good card for interruption purposes, and it's a very good card to interrupt your opponent's hand traps. I like playing it in all of my Master Duel decks. And another card I like playing in all my Master Duel decks is Forbidden Droplet. In my previous video, I talked a little bit about how this card is amazing against Drytron, and it has practical utility against the Eldritch deck. So I very much like having this in my list. Discarding the dragons isn't so bad. Getting them in graveyard can fuel your chaos monsters and can potentially give you searches with Absolouter. So I like Forbidden Droplets as my tech choice, but you don't have to play this. And then 2 Tidying to go along with the Chamber Dragon Maid. You don't have to draw the Dragon Maid for these to be good. All you do is bounce 1 dragon you control and 1 card your opponent controls to the hand. And it's a very, very good compulsory evacuation style, like effect. And then when it's in the graveyard, you can use it to special back your chamber and search the other copy. So it's a nice engine. I really like it. It's a good backup plan, and it makes your board just that much stronger. For the extra deck, we play the 3 Synchro Dragons, the Borreload Savage Dragon, the Chaos Ruler, and the Hot Red Dragon Arc Fiend. If you only can make 1 Synchro monster, you're probably going to want to make Chaos Ruler. Now, it may not sound that intuitive, like, hey, but I can just make Borreload Savage Dragon have a negate, you know? Like, negates are good, I agree. But Chaos Ruler, while its effect doesn't seem that powerful, excavate 5, then add a light or dark to your hand, send the remaining cards to the graveyard. It's amazing. You can basically replace it's in your hand. You're almost always going to hit a light or dark just based on the deck composition. You can send a Chaos Space to the graveyard just randomly drawing a card. You can get a search if you mill this and also add a card. You can add hand traps, and then it can summon itself from the graveyard later by banishing a light and a dark from the hand or grave. So it just does so many things. It'll extend your plays, and worst case scenario, it just stays in graveyard, and the next turn you can summon it back. So if you can only make 1 Synchro monster, probably want to make this first. Then you're going to want to convert it into an Arc Fiend by using a level 1 tuner like Rocket Synchron, even sometimes Dragon Buster if you have to. And you could also use Effect Veiler. Normal summoning Effect Veiler is a play that comes up. If you have these, you want to throw them in the deck. So this is going to be part of your end board. The Arc Fiend just targets a card your opponent controls and negates it. And you can also sometimes go into Borreload Savage Dragon. You'll typically go into Borreload Savage Dragon by using the card Quad Borrel Dragon, because your play typically turn 1 only leaves you with a Striker Dragon in graveyard. You don't really want to equip the Striker Dragon to this because it'll only get 1 negate, and that's not great. Equipping it with the Quad Borrel Dragon means that it'll get 2 turns of negates. All you do is you take a Dragon monster plus a Rocket monster, so you can use like any of your Rockets plus a leftover dude, and then just discard a card, target itself or any face-up monster on the field, and you special summon Rockets back from the graveyard equal to its link rating. But then because you've targeted either itself, or a lot of plays will let you target Union Carrier to get that in graveyard, you can then equip that Link 2 monster that you've sent to the graveyard to the monsters that you've summoned. So it's just kind of like if you don't have a Link 2 in the graveyard but you have 2 Rockets, you can just make this first, discard a card, and then you get a Link 2 in the graveyard, making your Borrel Savage Dragon that much stronger. We do play Guard Dragon Pisty. This card is not part of your primary combos, but it's really good. If you just summon like a Link monster in the extra monster zone, such as a Borrel Sword Dragon, or maybe you've summoned something like a Hieratic Seal pointing to the sides, you can summon this in like the middle zone, and then maybe turn something like this into a Triple Burst Dragon pointing down. At that time, you would be able to summon back from your banish or your graveyard using Pisty's effect. This will basically let you link climb into a card like Access Code Talker or maybe a Borrel Sword Dragon to find that last little bit of lethal, and it can even revive fallen boss monsters such as a Arc Fiend Abyss that may have been outed the turn before. You just can Pisty it back, and it's there. It's a real dude. 3 copies of Striker Dragon is great for the late game. This card's limited to 1 in the TCG. You can work with 1. You can definitely play the deck with 1. But having extra copies lets you do a really nifty trick with Rocket Recharger. All you gotta do is have a Recharger in graveyard, and you can use Striker's Dragon's effect targeting itself or any extra deck monster, return the Recharger to the hand, and then the Recharger sees the destruction. And since a dark monster was destroyed by battle or card effect, you send it to the graveyard, and you can special any dark monster with a different name than Striker from your graveyard. This will let you revive your Arc Fiend Abyss again. And it's extremely good. You can even bring back a Borrel Sword if there's one in your graveyard. 1 copy of Hieratic Seal, the Heavenly Spheres. Some people play 2, but I think 1's just fine, because you can always recycle it with your Chaos Space. You're going to make this in a lot of your opening boards. Make sure you make it in the extra monster zone, because it's just a quick play, tribute a monster, bounce a card on the field, not targeting. So it's a really relevant interruption. When you do tribute itself, however, you get to summon any dragon from your deck. You're typically going to summon either Chamber Dragon Maid, so you can search for tidying. You can summon out Absorouter, so when it dies, you get a copy of a Rocket. You can search a Rocket directly and special summon it from your deck. It's pretty good. You can get a Seifer. You can get it whatever you want. There's some other targets too that I'll show. I do include 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix. This is just kind of dealing with problem cards. You can make this and then kind of link climb into like a Borrel Sword or an Access Code, but making this first and maybe discarding like an Absorouter will let you kind of consolidate your materials and remove your opponent's cards, trading them down and creating a simplified game state where your negates will get much more value. I include 1 copy of Dolingerous Dragon. You don't need this, but it's a pretty generic Link monster that's dark and just takes 2 dark dragons. Dark Link monsters are really useful, so if you do have actually access to like a Ipmast Arena, I would say this card would be a more than suitable replacement, if not better. Delingerous, though, has the ability to summon back from the graveyard when you summon a rocket to the field. So you can use this to maybe go into, like, summon this and go into, like, a Heretic Seal, summon a rocket, and then summon this back. And you can use it to link climb into, like, an Access Code or a Boral Sword or maybe even a Union Carrier. So it gives you that little extra push of material that you wouldn't have had otherwise, since it can summon itself back from the graveyard for free. And then I did touch on Quad Boral being a Link 2. You can also use this to destroy your opponent's Link monsters. And if you do, you get to summon back a ton of dragons from your graveyard. Just definitely give this card a read over, and it's an important tool in your arsenal. Union Carrier, you're going to use to equip one of your Dark Dragons with the Buster Sword. When you equip this to a Savage Dragon or an Abyss, your opponent can't summon from their extra deck, and it's going to almost certainly spell destruction for them. It's an incredibly oppressive combo, and if you're able to resolve it, not only does your monster become like 4,200, then your opponent can't summon from their extra deck, so it's going to be very hard for them to break without a Kaiju. I play one copy of Triple Burst Dragon. This is a Dark Dragon, so it's really synergistic with our engine. But more than that, whenever it attacks, your opponent can't activate anything in the damage step. So that's pretty useful for cards like Sky Strikers, have Sky Striker Ace Ray. Whenever you destroy one of their Ace monsters, the Ray will just summon back. And we don't have too many responses to that except for like DD Crow. So if you just make this, you can attack over the Ray and then negate its effect. It can also help you go into a card like Access Code or use the effect of Pisty more accurately. And then Boral Sword Dragon is very nice in this dragon-based deck. Since it's a Dark Dragon, it has a great synergy with your engine, and you're able to easily get a Link 2 plus 2 other monsters on the field to make this. Typically, you're going to make this and then use the Chaos Ruler's effect in Graveyard to summon it back, and that will give you 9,000 damage. So once you clean up the board, you just make this guy and then summon back your Chaos Ruler, and boom, that's it. And of course, Access Code, a great generic card to clean up boards. Some other tech cards you could consider for this deck would include 3 copies of Black Metal Dragon and 1 to 2 copies of Darkness Metal Dragon. You can usually summon this off of the Heretic Seal, or you can normal summon it to get the additional surge, and it allows you a great extender. It just doesn't really feel necessary to me, but I think a lot of players will consider this, and it's very good. You could also play 1 copy of Dragon Ravine and 1 copy of Romulus in your extra deck. This lets you easily access your rocket engine because you can search Dragon Ravine with the Romulus effect, and then play it, discard a card, and send Absolrouter to your graveyard, which searches out your Rocket Tracer. So it's very useful. Alright, so I have a game to show you. We have a DD Crow Ash Blossom, we drew a Recharger, Chamber Dragon Maid, and a Twin Twister. So we'll go ahead and normal summon our Chamber Dragon Maid here. That's just going to net us the tidying that we need. We'll consolidate into the Striker Dragon, which gets us our field spell. And since we have a rocket in graveyard, we are in hand, we can go ahead and activate the field spell and special summon the Recharger. Then we'll just link ourselves into a Seals, set the tidying, set the Twin Twister, and pass. Doesn't look like much, but this is a pretty good board when you can't full combo. So they're going to start with Foolish Burial, which will allow sending Kit. It looks like it's Tri Brigades. Kit will trigger sending Nerval, and then Nerval will try and add. We're going to allow this because we have double bounces here. We can return 2 cards from the field to the hand. And Tri Brigades only really have 2 lines of play. They have their normal summon, and then they have Karis Bounce. And if you can stop those 2 lines, you're usually in a very favorable position. So we're going to summon Absolrouter in this play. Since we're bouncing the Absolrouter with the tidying, we can then discard it for the Twin Twisters. My opponent doesn't actually set anything. We're still good, however, since we have the Dragon Maid in graveyard. We can just use the Tidying's effect to summon it back, and we'll get ourselves another copy of Tidying. Then we can, we just have another normal summon, so we'll normal summon here, and we can special summon from our hand because we control a rocket, and we'll make Union Carrier. The Union Carrier will allow the Router to go to graveyard. We'll search ourselves a Tracer, and then Boot Sector specials it. We're then going to use the effect to pop the Boot Sector and summon our level 1. We can sync these two into a Chaos Ruler, and let's see what we hit. It's going to be a White Baby Dragon, Black Baby Dragon, and Noctovision. So we'll take ourselves the Black Dragon Collapse Serpent and synchro into a Hot Red Dragon Arcfiend Abyss. Now Union Carrier can equip that with the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, and by summoning back the Chaos Ruler, that's going to be 8,200 right there. So a pretty simple OTK setup. If my opponent did have another turn, Yeah, they ain't getting very far without their extra deck. So a bit of a short game, but just goes to show that Seal's Tidying Pass can be enough to win. Thanks for watching this video. Definitely keep your eyes out. I'll be posting a video with 5 games that I play with Dragon Link, commentating on top of them, and I hope you enjoy. There'll be lots of instructive moments, and if you're liking this kind of content, really appreciate a subscription to the channel. Other than that, though, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.